They seated me at table 12 behind a flower arrangement that could hide a small aircraft, as if I were some embarrassing relative they hoped would vanish into the centerpiece. I smiled sweetly and decided this charming boy had no idea what storm he was about to walk into. I, Sarah Lewis, had chosen my outfit carefully, a modest gray dress with my grandmother's pearls, just enough dignity to avoid looking pitiful. "Mom, you look acceptable," Emma said, already distracted by the wedding coordinator. I watched my daughter glide around in her great-grandmother's lace. She looked radiant with that new bride energy. William Reed's parents swept in like visiting royalty. His mother, Judith, dripping in diamonds, worked the room with surgical precision, air-kissing the important people while looking straight through me like I was furniture. "Table 12, ma'am, right behind the decorative feature," the usher told me. From my horticultural prison, I watched the festivities in the large mirror. There I was, Sarah Lewis, 72 years of accumulated wisdom, tucked away like last week's newspaper. During cocktail hour, I noticed something fascinating about my new son-in-law. He had different smiles, megawatt charm for the wealthy guests, practiced politeness for the useful ones, and complete indifference for anyone who might ask favors instead of offering opportunities. "Mrs. Lewis," William approached with his dazzling smile, the one reserved for manipulation. "Isn't this just magical? You must be absolutely bursting with pride." "Oh, I'm practically vibrating with maternal joy," I replied, voice sweeter than artificial sweetener, though the view from here is quite educational. I was hoping we could spend some quality time together soon, really get to know each other properly. How refreshing. Most people manage that before marrying into the family. That earned me a microscopic pause in his smile, barely a flicker, but I caught it like a hawk spotting prey. "I was thinking dinner this week. I have some fascinating ideas about family collaboration." Family collaboration. How deliciously ominous. "Well, I do love a good mystery dinner. Would Thursday work?" "Perfect. I know a place downtown. Very private. Excellent for meaningful conversations." As he glided away, I caught my reflection, a silver-haired woman sitting alone behind enough flowers to stock a botanical garden. Someone who looked like she shopped with coupons and worried about heating bills. Exactly the image I'd been cultivating for 2 years. Too bad for William. I'd spent 72 years learning that the most dangerous opponents are usually the ones everyone underestimates. Emma called daily after the wedding, each conversation a breathless symphony of marital bliss. "He's so thoughtful. Mom, always thinking ahead about our future and financial security." Security. The word floated through our conversations like smoke before a fire. How lovely, sweetheart. A husband should definitely think about money constantly, especially other people's money. Emma missed the sarcasm entirely. Thursday evening arrived. I dressed for my role simple black dress that suggested respectability without prosperity, paired with my mother's pearl earrings and George's broken watch. The restaurant William chose was pretentious. He was already seated when I arrived, looking every inch the successful young executive. "Sarah," he practically levitated from his chair. "You look absolutely radiant. We ordered wine." He insisted on a bottle with more syllables than my high school diploma. "So," he began, swirling his wine, "how are you managing life on your own?" "Oh, just brilliantly. 72 years of practice makes most things seem trivial. But surely it gets overwhelming sometimes. That big house, all those decisions." He was fishing with the subtlety of dynamite in a trout pond. "Don't you worry about practical matters. Finances, legal issues, people who might take advantage of your generous spirit." There it was, the real topic dressed up in concern. Should I be worried about something specific? William, not worried exactly, but prepared. You know how complicated things can become, especially for someone in your unique situation. My unique situation. Like being a widow was a rare medical condition. Well, living alone, making major decisions without guidance, being vulnerable to people who might not have your best interests at heart. How thoughtful of you to be concerned about my vulnerability. I've actually been consulting with my attorney about protective measures for people in situations like yours. He reached into his jacket, Out came a manila folder which he placed on the table like it was the Holy Grail. Just some basic paperwork, nothing dramatic. Simply safeguards in case you ever need assistance making important decisions. I opened the folder. Power of attorney, financial oversight, medical decision-making authority, complete control disguised as loving concern. This is quite comprehensive. My lawyer specializes in elder care. He's handled many cases like yours. Cases like mine. I was apparently a case study now. And Emma is aware of this thoughtful initiative. She thinks it's brilliant. Really. Sarah, we just want to ensure you're protected from anyone who might take advantage of your trusting nature. Protected from whom? Specifically, dishonest contractors, questionable investment advisors, relatives who might suddenly become very interested in your welfare. The irony was so thick you could serve it for dessert. These things are much easier to arrange before any complications develop. And this needs to be handled quickly because timing matters with these arrangements. The longer you wait, the more questions might arise about your capacity to make such decisions. My capacity. He was already laying groundwork for declaring me incompetent. I'll definitely want to review this with my own legal counsel. His smile flickered. Your own lawyer? Oh, I really think we should finalize this tonight. I'm sure your notary will understand that important decisions shouldn't be rushed. My what? Your notary. You did bring one, didn't you? You seem so prepared for everything else. The mask slipped completely. How did you know about the notary? Lucky guess. You strike me as someone who plans ahead. William stared at me, probably trying to determine if I was genuinely naive or actively resisting his con. Of course, he said finally. Take all the time you need. But his eyes said he was done playing games with the harmless old widow. Too bad for William. The harmless old widow was just getting started. Monday morning brought a call from William. I hope you've had time to think about our discussion. Oh, I've been thinking about very little else. I was hoping we could meet again this week. I have some additional information. Actually, I was thinking somewhere more private. Maybe your home. My home, where he could pressure me without witnesses. That sounds fascinating. Wednesday evening. Perfect, around 7. Wednesday couldn't come fast enough. I spent the intervening days doing what I did best, observing and planning. By Wednesday afternoon, I found myself standing at the top of my basement stairs, holding George's key. For 2 years. I'd avoided this moment, too grief-stricken to face whatever secrets my husband had left behind. The safe was hidden behind a panel I'd never noticed. Inside, I found documents that made my hands shake, bank statements showing accounts I'd never heard of, investment records spanning decades, and at the very bottom, a letter in George's familiar handwriting. My dearest Sarah, if you're reading this, it means someone is trying to take advantage of your generous heart. I'm sorry I never told you about the money. $33 million properly protected and completely yours. I lived modestly so we could die wealthy. And I hid our wealth so you'd be safe from predators. Exactly like whoever drove you to open this safe. There's a business card for Carol Peterson. She's handled everything since I got sick. She knows about the threats you might face, and has instructions to help you fight back. Don't let anyone steal what I spent 40 years building for you. Use every penny if you have to. Make them regret the day they decided to mess with my wife. All my love. George. $33 million. More money than I could spend in 10 lifetimes. I called Carol Peterson immediately. This is Sarah Lewis. I believe my husband arranged for you to assist me. Mrs. Lewis, I've been waiting 2 years for your call. Can you come in today? Carol was younger than I'd imagined. Maybe 50 with sharp eyes and a handshake that could crack walnuts. George told me this day might come. The day someone tried to manipulate you into signing away your rights. She spread documents across her desk. Your husband predicted someone would approach you within 2 years of his death, trying to gain control of what they assumed were modest assets. But they're not modest. No, they're not $33 million completely protected in an irrevocable trust. You control everything, but no one else can access it. Even if I signed William's papers. Even then, George specifically designed this to protect you from exactly that kind of manipulation. So, William can't touch any of it. William can't touch a penny. But more importantly, you now have the resources to make sure he never tries this again. What do you mean? Carol smiled almost predatorily. I mean, we're going to destroy him so thoroughly that he'll spend the rest of his life warning other predators about the dangers of underestimating widows. How criminal charges for attempted fraud, civil suits for damages, and we're going to investigate every financial transaction he's made for the past 5 years. Is that legal? Perfectly legal. When someone attempts to defraud you, we have every right to find out where his money came from and where it went. We'll expose his entire operation. Operation? Oh, yes. Men like William don't work alone. There's a whole network of people who target elderly victims. We're going to find them all. What happens to my daughter's marriage? That's up to Emma, but she'll make that decision with complete information instead of lies and manipulation. Wednesday evening. William arrived at 7 armed with his briefcase and trustworthy smile. I brought some case studies of families who've benefited from these arrangements. How thoughtful. But before we discuss other people's stories, I have some questions about your story. My story? Yes, I'm curious about your background, your qualifications for managing other people's lives. His confident expression flickered. Well, I have extensive business experience. In what field? Investment management, primarily. For which firm? I work independently now. And before that, various positions in financial services. How long have you been advising elderly people about their financial decisions? I wouldn't call it advising, exactly. More like protective planning. And how many elderly people have you protected? A few. Families who needed guidance. Guidance they requested or guidance you suggested they needed. The room fell silent except for the ticking of my grandmother's clock. Sarah, I think there might be some misunderstanding about my intentions. Oh, I understand your intentions perfectly. What I'm curious about is your methods. My methods. For identifying vulnerable targets. For gaining their trust. For convincing them to sign away their rights. His mask was cracking like old paint. You're making serious accusations. I'm making serious observations about a serious predator who made a serious mistake. What mistake? Assuming I was just another helpless widow. Sarah, I think you're confused. I'm not confused at all. I know exactly what you're trying to do. The question is whether you know what I'm about to do. I'm talking about the fact that I've been recording this conversation. I'm talking about the private investigator who's been documenting your activities. I'm talking about the attorney who's preparing criminal charges. The color drained from his face. You can't prove anything. I can prove everything. Your financial troubles, your debts, your pattern of targeting elderly women, all of it. How do you know about my gambling debts? I know everything about you, including the fact that you're not my first admirer. You're not the first charming young man who's tried to separate me from my assets. The difference is, this time I was prepared. Prepared how? Prepared to destroy anyone who tries to steal what my husband spent 40 years building. You don't understand. I'm desperate. You need to leave now before I call the police. William gathered his papers with shaking hands, his plan crumbling like a house of cards in a hurricane. This isn't over. Yes, I said, thinking of George's secrets. It is. Thursday morning arrived with Carol Peterson's call and the sweet promise of professional revenge. I found a lawyer who specializes in prosecuting elder fraud. She wants to meet with you today. The afternoon meeting took place in the district attorney's office, where I met Sarah Chen, a prosecutor who looked like she ate insurance fraud for breakfast. Mrs. Lewis, tell me about your son-in-law's approach. I walked her through every conversation, every manipulation, every carefully crafted lie William had fed me and Emma. Classic pattern, she said, making notes. Family connection, financial pressure, urgency to sign documents. He's done this before. How can you tell? Because amateurs make mistakes. William knew exactly which emotional buttons to push, which legal phrases to use. This is his profession. So, what do? We set a trap, make him think he's won, then document everything he does next. What kind of trap? Mrs. Lewis calls him, says she's reconsidered, wants to move forward with signing the papers. We record everything, then we arrest him the moment he brings a notary to witness the signing. When do we spring this trap? Monday. That gives us the weekend to set up recording equipment and coordinate with the police. Sunday brought Emma, looking worried and confused. Mom, William has been acting strange. He keeps asking about Dad's finances, about whether you might have hidden accounts or investments, because he needs money more desperately than you realize. How desperately? Desperately enough to steal it from his wife's mother. You really think he's trying to steal from you? I know he is. The question is whether you're ready to see proof. What kind of proof? The kind that will destroy your marriage but save your mother. Emma was quiet for a long time. Finally, show me. Monday morning, I called William with the performance of my lifetime. I think you're right. I do need protection. I'd like to move forward with those papers. The relief in his voice was audible. That's wonderful, Sarah. When would be convenient? As soon as possible. This weekend made me realize how vulnerable I really am. Perfect. I can have everything ready by this afternoon. This afternoon. I let a note of elderly confusion creep into my voice. Isn't that rather fast? These things work best when handled efficiently. I'll bring my notary. Let's say 3 hunters at your house. At exactly 3 huzzers, William arrived with his briefcase, his notary, and his most trustworthy smile. Hidden cameras captured everything. Sarah, I can't tell you how relieved I am that you're taking this step. I realized you were right about the dangers. An old woman like me needs guidance. Exactly. Now, these papers will give Emma and me the authority to protect your interests. All of my interests. All of them. Financial decisions, medical choices, living arrangements, everything. I picked up the pen, letting my hand shake slightly. I signed the first page, then paused. William, what happens to my money after I sign this? Your money will be professionally managed. No more worrying about investments or bills. By whom? By people with experience, people who understand these things. People like you. People like Emma and me. Yes, I signed the second page. And if I change my mind later? Well, that would depend on your mental state at the time. These arrangements are designed to be permanent. I signed the third page. William, there's something I should mention. What's that? I think there might be more money than you realize. His eyes lit up. More money. George may have had some accounts I didn't know about. Hidden investments. Perhaps. How much more money? Sarah. And there it was. The greed. The absolute confirmation that this was never about protecting me. I'm not sure. Maybe significant amounts. William's hands were shaking. Significant how? Well, I said, setting down the pen without signing the final page. That's where things get interesting. What do you mean? I smiled, thinking of $33 million and the trap we just sprung. I mean, you're under arrest, William. You have the right to remain silent. The police emerged from their hiding places as William's face went white with shock and terror. You can't, I did. And now you're going to learn what happens to predators who hunt the wrong prey. The news broke that evening. Local businessman arrested in elder fraud sting operation, Emma called, sobbing. Mom, what have you done? I've protected myself from your husband's attempt to steal my independence and my assets. But the arrest, the charges, this will destroy him. How can you defend a man who was systematically planning to rob your mother? Emma showed up an hour later. I played the recording of William's confession. Every greedy word, every calculated manipulation. He was going to put me in a nursing home, sweetheart. He was going to steal everything your father left me and convince everyone I was too senile to object. But he loves me. He loves what he thought you could get him. There's a difference. I showed her the financial records Carol had uncovered, the gambling debts, the fake business ventures, the systematic targeting of elderly widows. This isn't his first time, Emma. You're married to a professional predator. Tuesday brought William's father, pompous and furious. Sarah, you've destroyed my son's life over a misunderstanding. I've exposed your son's criminal behavior. There's a difference. Wednesday brought William's bail hearing. The judge wasn't impressed. Mr. Reed, the evidence suggests a systematic attempt to defraud an elderly family member. Bail is set at $500,000. $500,000. He'd be staying in jail until trial. Thursday brought a visit from Carol. The FBI is interested in William's case. They think he's connected to a multi-state elder fraud ring. How big's potentially dozens of victims, millions in stolen assets. If they can flip William, they might bring down the entire operation. Friday brought Emma's decision. She filed for divorce. I can't stay married to someone who tried to rob my mother. Just when I thought things were progressing smoothly, the first real obstacle appeared. William's family had hired Harrison Jenkins, one of the city's most expensive criminal defense attorneys. "Mrs. Lewis," Jenkins said, "my client was merely trying to help an aging family member. This prosecution is a tragic overreaction. Your client was caught on tape admitting his intentions to steal my assets. Out-of-context statements from a concerned son-in-law. Nothing more." As he left, Jenkins smiled coldly. "You may have money, Mrs. Lewis, but so does my client's family. And they're very motivated to protect their son." The media caught wind of the case. Wealthy widow entraps son-in-law. Some outlets painted me as a vindictive old woman destroying a young man's life. The pre-trial motions became a battlefield. Jenkins filed motion after motion to suppress the recordings, to dismiss charges based on entrapment, to exclude evidence of William's past. "He's trying to drain us," Carol observed. Classic defense tactic. Bury the prosecution in paperwork until they're willing to deal. "I have $33 million, let him try." Just as we thought we were making progress, a bombshell dropped. Key evidence had been tampered with. Recordings from my home had been corrupted. Chain of custody documentation had disappeared from the prosecutor's office. "Someone's interfering with the case," Sarah Chen told us grimly. "Someone with access and influence." Then came the most unexpected development. Emma received a phone call from Patricia Hoffman, a 68-year-old retired teacher from Oregon. "Your husband stole my life savings 2 years ago. He went by the name William Parker then. He was dating my niece." More calls followed. A widower from Florida, a retired nurse from Texas, all with similar stories. "It's the same pattern," Carol said as we compiled the statements. "Different names, different states, but the same techniques. Why didn't they come forward before?" Shame's embarrassment, fear that no one would believe them. Classic reactions to elder fraud. The final piece fell into place when FBI agent Morgan Harris arrived at my door with a photograph that made my blood run cold. It showed William at a conference, standing beside an older man who looked eerily similar. "James Reed," Agent Harris explained. "William's uncle. The man we believe runs one of the largest elder fraud operations in the country. His uncle taught him how to do this. Not just taught him. Directed him. William is just one of several field agents working under James. We've been trying to build a case against the organization for years, but victims rarely come forward. And when they do, evidence mysteriously disappears. Like in our case." "Exactly. James has connections in law enforcement and local government across multiple states. He's been untouchable. Until now." Agent Harris smiled. "Until a widow with $33 million and a grudge decided to fight back." "What do you need from me?" I asked. "Everything. Your testimony, your resources, your commitment to seeing this through. They're going to come at you hard, Mrs. Lewis. They'll threaten, they'll bribe, they'll try to destroy your reputation. I'm not just prepared, Agent Harris. I'm looking forward to it." The trial began in September, 6 months after William's arrest. The courthouse steps were crowded with reporters and curious onlookers. Inside, William sat beside Harrison Jenkins, looking haggard but defiant. Behind them sat James Reed, watching with the detached interest of someone who believed himself untouchable. "Mrs. Lewis," Jenkins said when I took the stand, his voice dripping with false sympathy. "Isn't it true that you set out to deliberately entrap my client?" "I set out to protect myself from fraud. By luring him into a situation where you could record him without his knowledge. By documenting his attempts to steal my assets. Assets he didn't even know existed. How could Mr. Reed have been attempting to steal money he didn't know you had? He was attempting to gain control over whatever I had, whether it was $33 or $33 million? Jenkins paced in front of the jury. "Isn't it possible that you misinterpreted his genuine concern for your welfare? Is it genuine concern to suggest I'm mentally incompetent, to plan to put me in a nursing home against my will? to take control of every aspect of my life without my informed consent. Jenkins tried another approach. Mrs. Lewis, at your age, wouldn't you agree that having someone help manage your affairs might be beneficial? I smiled. At my age, Mr. Jenkins, I've learned to recognize the difference between help and theft. Have you? A murmur ran through the courtroom. Jenkins's face tightened. No further questions. The trial's turning point came when Patricia Hoffman took the stand. Her hands trembled as she identified William. He called himself William Parker then. He was dating my niece. So charming, so concerned about my finances. Her voice broke. By the time I realized what was happening, he had control of everything. My house, my savings, my late husband's pension. I ended up living in my sister's spare bedroom at 70. William's face remained impassive, but I saw his father shift uncomfortably. More victims testified, each story following the same pattern, each identifying William under different names. The defendant is part of a sophisticated criminal enterprise, Sarah Chen told the jury in her closing argument. This isn't about family concern. This is about deliberate, calculated theft from our most vulnerable citizens. The jury deliberated for 5 hours. I sat with Emma, both of us silent, our hands clasped together. What if they believe Jenkins, she whispered. Then we appeal. We keep fighting. That's what your father would have wanted. The verdict guilty on all counts. William's face went blank as the judge scheduled sentencing for the following week. Mr. Reed, Judge Eleanor Chen said, you systematically targeted a vulnerable elderly person, exploited family connections for personal gain, and showed no remorse for your actions. The court sentences you to 18 years in federal prison. As they led him away, he looked at me with pure hatred. This isn't over, old woman. I smiled sweetly. Yes, it is. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed. I simply said, today sends a message. The elderly are not easy targets. We bite back. After the trial, Carol and I celebrated. You realize you've become something of a legend in elder law circles, she said. You're the widow who fought back and won. You've inspired other victims to come forward. What's next for you? Next, I make sure this never happens to anyone else. How? By using every resource at my disposal to hunt down predators before they find their next victim. Creating a nationwide elder fraud prevention program faced bureaucratic obstacles at every turn. Government agencies moved at glacial speed. Law enforcement had limited resources. It's like pushing a boulder uphill, I told Emma after another frustrating meeting. So push harder, she said simply. That's what you taught me. We were planning our next steps when the counterattack came. A scathing profile appeared in a major newspaper, painting me as a vindictive, mentally unstable widow using my dead husband's money to wage personal vendettas. The source for this is obviously James Reed, Carol said. He's trying to discredit you before you can do more damage to his operation. The smear campaign escalated. Anonymous tips to the IRS triggered an audit of my finances. Fake social media accounts spread rumors about my mental health. Emma even received threatening phone calls. They're scared, Agent Harris told us. You've become a genuine threat to their business model. With the FBI's help, we expanded our investigation, following financial trails across state lines, identifying other operatives in Reed's network. It's bigger than we thought, Harris reported. Dozens of operatives targeting hundreds of victims, estimated damages in the tens of millions. We presented our findings to a federal grand jury, which indicted James Reed on multiple counts of conspiracy, money laundering, and wire fraud. This is your fault, he spat at me as federal agents led him away in handcuffs. You have no idea what you've done. I've done exactly what I set out to do. I've turned predators into prey. But even with James in custody, the battle continued. Court dates were mysteriously rescheduled. Evidence disappeared. Witnesses suddenly became unavailable. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source. William, facing 18 years in federal prison and abandoned by his family's legal team, decided to cut a deal. He'll give us everything, Sarah Chen announced. Names, methods, financial records, contacts in law enforcement and the judicial system, the entire operation from top to bottom. In exchange for what? Reduced sentence, witness protection, a fresh start when he gets out. How much time? 8 to 10 years with good behavior. That's acceptable. With Williams' testimony, the case against James Reed became airtight. Agent Harris spread files across the conference table, photos, financial records, organizational charts showing the scope of the Reed operation. 39 victims across 6 states, average loss of $300,000 per victim, total damages approaching $15 million. What happened to the other victims? Most lost their independence, their savings, their confidence. Several were placed in nursing homes against their will. 3 died while their assets were being systematically stolen. 3 people died while being robbed. The number hit me like a physical blow. We want to create a program that does for other victims what you did for yourself. Legal resources, financial protection, criminal prosecution support. Funded how combination of federal grants, asset forfeiture funds, and private donations. How much would this cost? Initial startup around $2 million, ongoing operations maybe $5 million annually. And in exchange, we systematically destroy every elder fraud operation in the country. That's the goal? Where do I sign? The White House ceremony took place on a crisp October morning. The president announced, Mrs. Sarah Lewis, for her extraordinary contributions to criminal justice and elder protection, demonstrating that ordinary citizens can achieve extraordinary results when they refuse to accept injustice. Thank you, Mr. President. 2 years ago, I was a widow trying to live quietly and avoid trouble. I learned something important. Trouble doesn't avoid you just because you're polite to it. Laughter rippled through the distinguished audience. When someone tried to steal my independence under the guise of protection, I discovered that the best defense against predators is becoming a more dangerous predator yourself. I looked directly into the television cameras. To anyone who preys on elderly people, we're watching. We're organized. We're well-funded. And we're very, very angry. Find a different line of work. The standing ovation lasted 3 minutes. Williams' parole hearing arrived 8 years later. I sat across from him in the small, grim room. Mrs. Lewis, he said, his voice lacking the smooth charm I remembered. I want to apologize for what I tried to do to you. Do you? Or are you apologizing because it's what the parole board wants to hear? His eyes flickered. I've had 8 years to think about my actions. And what have you concluded? That I was wrong, that I hurt people, that I deserved what happened to me. What about the others, Patricia Hoffman, the retired nurse from Texas, the widower from Florida? Did they deserve what happened to them? He looked away. No, I agreed. They didn't. The difference is they didn't have $33 million to fight back with. They didn't have George. I understand that now. Do you? Then tell me this, William. If you were released today, what would you do differently? He hesitated, just long enough to confirm what I already suspected. I thought so. You're not sorry you did it. You're sorry you got caught. The parole board denied his request. 5 more years before he could apply again. 1 year after William's second parole hearing. Patricia Hoffman wanted to meet me. We sat in my garden, 2 silver-haired women who'd survived the same predator. I got my house back, she said, her eyes bright with tears. The program you created, they helped me recover everything William stole. But more than that, they gave me back my dignity. I reached over and squeezed her hand. That's what George would have wanted. As Patricia left, she paused at the garden gate. You know, for years I felt like a fool for falling for William's schemes. Now I realize the real fools are the predators who think we're easy targets. That evening, I stood in my basement one last time, looking at the safe where George had hidden his secrets. 10 years had passed since I'd first opened it. 10 years of fighting, building, and changing the landscape for elderly victims of fraud. I thought about William, still in prison, and James, serving a life sentence. I thought about Emma, now running the foundation's daily operations. I thought about the thousands of elderly people who now had somewhere to turn when threatened by predators. As I closed the safe for the final time, I whispered to George's memory, "Mission accomplished, my love. They'll never underestimate us again." The predators had learned the most expensive lesson in criminal history: never target a widow with 33 million and a grudge, because some mistakes last forever, and some legacies change the world.